How does the Bitcoin technology work? Well, to answer that question, I first want to show you the problem that the internet causes, or a problem that's just inherent in the internet. Yeah, there are some problems with the internet. In the beginning of the internet was amazing because it connected people around the world and you didn't need permission to get on. There's no internet fee. Like, you don't pay every minute you're on the internet. You don't have to pay to subscribe to the internet. Sure, you have to pay for the wires to get there, your ISP, your Verizons, all this kind of stuff. But the internet is free for anyone to use. That was inherent in the design. And the important word, which is going to come up a lot in this course, is decentralization. So it's this idea of decentralization that you don't need permission to get on the internet, to post anything, to share anything. The internet is just there. You can't stop it, more or less. This kind of principle also applies to something like Wikipedia, which you probably know about. I mean, Wikipedia is there. Anyone can read it. Anyone can edit it, change it. It seems crazy, but that's more or less how it works. One of the problems now with this world where anyone can get on and change anything and do anything is that nobody knows you're a dog. Have you ever seen this before? This cartoon, this is from early in the early days of the internet, but on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, right? What it means is that your identity on the internet is anonymous. And we know that, right? Especially in the early days, like the chat forums, guys, still to this day with the YouTube, right? Underneath the YouTube comments, they're like the worst ever. Identity is anonymous, and this is a problem. It's a problem for commenting and Wikipedia and all these things I'm talking about. Identity is of particular concern when we're talking about sending money. When you're sending money on the internet, I want to make sure that if I am sending it to you, that you are who I think you are. If I'm sending $10 to my dad, I want to make sure that it's going to my dad, it doesn't get redirected somewhere else, and that he got it and I got a feedback message that it has been received. This is very complicated to do. And the way that it gets managed right now, if you remember from this example, is the banks, right? Big hubs. There are big hubs that manage your identity for you. And because all of this information is in one place, and because it's behind a closed door, right, that nobody can see it. I mean, you can't see my bank account like this right here. Because of that, there are specific places that are constantly under attack by hackers, counterfeit, fraud, all of this kind of stuff. In addition, your information is never truly private. Think about it this way. Anyone that works at the bank that you bank at, let's say Bank of America, anyone that works there can go in and access your account, right? They can see all the things you've done. The government can come and say, I need the records of everything Chris Castiglione has bought. They have this power. And the same power extends to, let's say, Facebook. Facebook can read all of your messages if they wanted to. This happens all the time. Governments get subpoenaed. People that are, people are like at Facebook are looking at ex-girlfriends' photos. They get caught for it. There's so many points of failure and vulnerability in how we send data on the internet. So that's the problem as it is right now, is that the control is not in my hands, it is in the bank's hands. And not only that, but there are 2 billion people, in the world who don't have access to banks because there aren't any banks in certain countries, or they're hundreds of miles away from where they live. In some ways, this isn't necessarily a problem that you and me watching this video particularly might have, but this affects billions of people around the world who don't have access for ways to efficiently send money. So what Bitcoin and the technology behind Bitcoin has done is, instead of having points like the banks that are specific hierarchies that control all the information, instead of having it behind a closed door at one place, they've decided, hey, let's make this ledger of all the money that I have coming in and out, let's make this ledger public to everybody. And that's exactly what the Bitcoin technology has done. It's enabled a way to have agreement between multiple people, between millions of people, between the entire world on how much money I have, I owe you money, you received money from me, and to keep a consensus without involving banks, without involving governments. Like I said, everybody has a copy of this ledger, just like this. Now I know what you're thinking. I don't want my public information out there. I don't want people to see how much money I have, who I'm sending money to, that it's me, all of this stuff. It seems super creepy. So that's where the next innovation comes from, and that's called blockchain. You may have heard of this before. This is definitely a keyword, and I could go deep into this, but I'm going to keep it kind of a surface level overview just so you get the gist of it in this video. So blockchain the blockchain technology or the blockchain protocol is what allows us all to have a copy of this ledger, but not to have our public identities public in a way that I can say, hey, Chris has this amount of money, Joe has this amount of money, Marissa has this amount of money. The blockchain technology technically isn't a new technology. It's 3 technologies together. And I'm just going to give an overview just so you get a sense of how this works. So put simply, the 3 technologies are private key cryptography, which is why sometimes these coins like Bitcoin and other coins, which we'll talk about, are known as cryptocurrency, because it involves this kind of cryptography so that it keeps the identity private. So it's cryptography, it's a P2P network, and the blockchain protocol itself. I'll just go through each of those quickly. So the private key cryptography, it's kind of like having a username and a password for your email, right? Like your email is a representation of you. It doesn't have to actually be your name or a security number. It's just some name you made up. So there's a public key, which is like your email. It's public. Anyone can send something to your email. It can be something you made up. In the case of Bitcoin and what we're talking about, your public key isn't going to be readable. It's not going to be like Chris at, onemonth.com. It's going to be something that's a big hashed number. So it's going to be a number, but the idea is the same. It's a number that I could send information or money to. So you have a public key and you have a private key. That private key is like your password. You put these 2 together and you can identify and say, yeah, this is me, like username, password, more or less like that. So there's an element of cryptography, and then there is this move to a P2P network. Whereas we had banking before, which is a central network, basically I go on my computer, I link on to TD Bank, and then they go to their database back to me. There's these like one stream of information. We're going to have distributed control so that we all have a copy, so that when I download a copy, you can see the copy that I have. So this is the P2P network. And this is similar to the way something like BitTorrent works, if you know how that works, if you've heard of it. I can basically share music with you or with hundreds of people by sending little bits of information distributed over the net. I don't have to send it specifically to, let's say, Spotify or specifically to Apple Music. It's a distributed way of sending information. So cryptography, P2P network, and the blockchain protocol itself. Which in short here just kind of puts together these blocks of information of identity together in such a way that they are tied together and they build on top of each other. That's more or less as far as I'm going to go with it right here, but just understand these 3 technologies come together that form this idea of this blockchain technology, and it's the blockchain and the ledgers. The blockchain is just a type of ledger that make this all so magical. To summarize, the Bitcoin innovation, the innovation that we see here, is that Bitcoin allows for many entities who do not know each other to reliably reach consensus about the state of the Bitcoin blockchain. So to say it again in a different way, many people who don't know each other, many dogs on the internet, right, can know more certainly that you're not a dog, that who you are. We can confirm identity without actually having to give full public record of all the things I'm doing. But you can still say who it is. It is me sending you money, and we can verify it between you and me, and without having to get any banks or government or anyone else involved. It's just a transaction, just like me giving you $10 right here. If you were to take it from me, it would just be between you and me in private, and Bitcoin has found a way to do that on the internet. So I know that's a mouthful. I know it's a lot at once. I think the main takeaways from this video are just to understand this idea of the ledger, the shared distributed ledger, the idea that the blockchain is one type of ledger that enforces this privacy and security, and and that it's amazing. I don't know. So there's a lot more to go into. Some of the images and notes from this video, I'll put links down below where I got them from, because there's much more reading that you could go deeper into this, and I want to share that with you. In the next video, let's look at where Bitcoin came from. Who came up with the idea? How did it get here? Where is it going? Let's look at the history of Bitcoin. I'll see you there in the next video.